This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, we think the Phoenix Suns have a new head coach, not confirmed yet by the team, but we expect it to be official in the coming days. A local kid, a guy who grew up rooting for the Phoenix Suns and playing high school basketball right here in the great state of Arizona, is coming home to coach the Suns. We're talking about Mike Budenholzer. So let's get a perspective of what this means, especially to the good folks up in northeastern Arizona. A guy who grew up with Mike Budenholzer and the entire Budenholzer family. Floyd Simmons, a broadcasting Hall of Famer up in the White Mountains. You see him on IFL football games, White Mountain Radio calling high school football games. He's a sports legend in our great state, and we are just so pleased to talk to you today. First of all, how are you doing, and how did you kind of take this news that Mike Budenholzer could be the next coach of the Suns?
Well, I'm doing great, and we've got beautiful weather up here in the White Mountains right now, so go ahead and come on up and play golf, everybody. It was about 70 today here in Lakeside, and unfortunately I had to work all day. I couldn't get out on the golf course, but beautiful conditions up here in the White Mountains. We can't wait for all the traffic to get here from down in the valley. So
I'll be one of those. I'll be one of those. Come up to Charlie Clark's. Yeah.
So this news, and it seems like it's news in every sense except confirmation that Mike is going to be the new head coach of the Suns, right? And I've been reading articles from across the country now. Everybody's posting about it. Everybody's saying it's going to happen, or it's a foregone conclusion at this point. I reached out to Mike last night to ask him how things were going. Are they talking to you? Then this morning there was the rumors started flying big time. And Mike is right now, he's completely under wraps on the whole thing. I don't know what's going on. Like nobody really does, except that we all think that the Suns are going to hire Mike Budenholzer.
Well, if I had an 8-figure contract on the table, I wouldn't even talk to my own mother. So I totally get that. Give us an idea of your relationship with Mike and how big of a deal this is to Arizona to have a kid from Holbrook coaching the Suns.
Well, sure. Both Mike and I grew up in Holbrook, and I mean, from the very beginning, Mike was born in Holbrook. I was born in South Dakota, but when I was a very young child, my dad in the Air Force was transferred to a little tiny radar site that was just built in Holbrook. In fact, he helped build that radar site in Holbrook, which operated for a couple of decades. It's no longer there. That's how I got to Holbrook. And from the very beginning, from my earliest ages, Mike was a figure, and he's a couple of years younger than me, but we became fast friends. We lived in the same neighborhood for a long time, and Mike is just a guy that you knew there was greatness in Mike's future from the very beginning. He was destined to be great. There was no question about it. He was the kind of guy who was pretty much excellent at everything that he did, even when he didn't try. Academics, didn't really try a lot, but he always excelled because Mike was just that kind of guy. He excels, especially, by the way, in interpersonal relationships. I think that's Mike's greatest quality. And it's been on display so many times. You may not kind of pick up on it when you watch some of the interviews. I think that Mike took some of the Greg Popovich approach on how he responds to media. So he's reserved. He doesn't give you everything, but I tell you, behind the doors, and when it comes to one-on-one relationships, there's nobody better than Mike. And, this is something you knew from the very, very beginning. Mike was always the guy.
When it comes to the town of Holbrook, what does this mean to have one of their own, potentially the next coach of the Suns?
Well, for a community, for a town that has been, I'll say this as gently as I can say, kind of dying a slow death for a long time. Holbrook was a vibrant and just a great community for so many years, for a long, long time. And then when the city was bypassed, when Interstate 40 bypassed the city, sometime in the 1970s, when I was a kid, it changed the town dramatically. A number of businesses closed at that time. There was a massive construction project for a power plant nearby for many years that kind of fed the community, fed the town in terms of jobs and people, and there was a lot happening. And when that all went away, Holbrook started a measurable decline. And what Holbrook people do, they really look back on the past with a lot of fondness and a lot of a lot of great memories of what things were like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, on into the 80s. And it's not quite the same anymore, but so many Holbrook people remember Mike. Everybody does remember Mike. And while there are a number of maybe prominent figures in the community, or have been over the years, Mike's at the top of that list of people who have accomplished great things. He's a guy who has always given back to the community. He comes back and he's participated in a couple of different things. They named the court after him at the high school gymnasium, which is named for a former vice principal, Tony Munoz. So it's Tony Munoz Gymnasium, and the court is Budenholzer Court, named for his family. Mike insisted that it would be named for the family, not named for Mike. You know, he's that kind of guy. And he was there with the dedication of the court, and he visits the community from time to time. He's given a lot back, including substantial financial gifts for things in the community. So Mike is just loved by I don't think you can find a person that ever knew Mike, and most people that had any contact or lived in Holbrook from the 1970s till now, everybody knows who Mike Budenholzer is. You're not going to find anybody who's going to say a crossword or a negative thing about Mike. Mike's just a great person. He's kind of the favorite son of Holbrook, Arizona. And so what does it mean to them? It means that, it's a reflection of what greatness the community has had in the past, particularly. There was great times in Holbrook at one time. It was the most vibrant community in all of Northeast Arizona at a time in the past. And so people hold on to a lot of what has been great about that community. And Mike is the living embodiment of what is and has been great about Holbrook, Arizona.
Hold on, I'm getting some breaking news into the newsroom. Give me 1 second here. It looks like Shams is reporting. Look, we have breaking news here on our interview on our podcast. It looks like he's agreed to a 5-year, $50+ million deal to become the new head coach of the Phoenix Suns. Take that in for a second. Your friend is the coach of the Phoenix Suns. How does that sit with you?
It sits with me pretty well. I mean, it's fantastic. Like I told you, I knew from the very beginning when Mike was just a kid that he was destined for greatness. And Mike was always operating, especially with his sports IQ, operating at a level that none of the rest of us could quite understand. When he was in Little League, let me tell you a real quick story. Mike's in Little League. I remember he's 10 years old. I was a 12-year-old. Mike's 10 years old. And Mike, in one of his first at-bats as a Little Leaguer, he strikes out. Okay, swing and a miss, strike 3, catcher drops the ball. Mike takes off for first base. Now that comes from, Mike watches baseball, Mike pays attention, but the rest of us, everybody knows that at the Little League level, at least at that time, you drop strike 3, it's still strike 3, you're still out, you go to the bench. But here's Mike taking off, breaking for first base, and he's safe for a moment. And it's that kind of next level thinking that Mike always had. When he was just a little kid, he had that, and he carried that forward. When he was in high school, listen, if Mike wasn't an NBA head coach now and soon to be the Suns head coach, I guess, if that were the case, Mike could very easily have been an NFL head coach, and probably would have been if it wasn't the NBA. Mike is that kind of guy with that kind of sports IQ. Doesn't matter what the sport is. Mike excelled and still does as a golfer. Mike was a great tennis player. We played a lot of tennis in our high school days. There was 3 of us guys that played tennis in Holbrook, Arizona, and Mike was one of them, and he's exceptional as a tennis player as well. Mike, when he was in high school as a football player, our coach, Coach Charlie Escobel, made no bones about the fact that Mike was the smartest guy on the field, smarter than him, smarter than the rest of the coaching staff. Mike, you talk about a field general or having a coach on the field. That was Mike. He was the smartest guy out there. He could very easily be coaching in the NFL right now if he wasn't an NBA coach. But Mike is he's exceptional. I think that, look, over the years, those of us who are fans of the Suns, love the Suns, and those of us who are from this part of the state that know Mike, know his family, or know of them, we have always wanted to see Mike come back and be a Phoenix Suns head coach. Obviously, it's conspired against him. Circumstances have over the years. When he left Atlanta as their head coach, or even going back further, the many, many years, I think 17 years as an assistant coach to Greg Popovich at San Antonio. For so many of those years, when there was a job opening at Phoenix, we were all hoping that Mike would be the guy that get that job. And I think he interviewed once, maybe twice in those years, and he just was never the pick. Don't understand why, but hey, listen, he went to Atlanta, became the NBA Coach of the Year there after turning that franchise around, went to Milwaukee, won a championship, another NBA Coach of the Year. And, you know, it's about time. I think that Mike deserves this opportunity. Whether or not it's the best thing that could ever happen for Mike is something that only Mike can answer. But as an Arizona native, pretty much, you know, most of my life spent here, and a guy who grew up with Mike, I got to tell you, I think I speak for everybody in this part of the state, Navajo County, the Navajo Nation, Holbrook, Winslow, Snowflake, Taylor, Show Low, Pine Top, Lakeside, all of this part of the state. We couldn't be more thrilled.
Set the record straight. We've had a number of emails from Holbrook saying we've been saying his name wrong, and all of the media has been saying his name wrong because he's Coach Bud, but everybody says Budenholzer. How do you say his name? Okay. I grew up with Mike. I've known Mike my entire life, pretty much. Growing up with the Budenholzer family, that is how it was pronounced. It pronounced, whether it was his dad, Vince Budenholzer, who's still with us. His mother passed away last year, Libby. She was the mayor of Holbrook for many years. It's Budenholzer. His older brother, Billy Budenholzer, a great quarterback at Holbrook High School. He's got many other brothers and sisters, big family. It was always Budenholzer. When Mike became a head coach, the pronunciation changed in the national media, and it changed to Budenholzer. And that might be by intention, because his older brother, Jim, I believe it was his older brother, Jim changed the pronunciation of his name several years before I ever heard a name change, pronunciation change with Mike. He changed it to Buden. And so I don't know why. When I see Mike, and I get to see him every now and then, he's just Mike. I call him Coach sometimes, but mostly Mike. And, as a media guy, what I do is when I'm talking about Mike in a media sense, I say Mike Budenholzer. Why? Because the national media has been saying it for 15 years. But when I'm talking amongst friends or whoever it might be, off the record, whatever, I revert back. It's always Budenholzer then. So I'm going to have to ask Mike. I'm sure the media will ask Mike, how do you want us to first question. Hey, we got to get this clarified. We really appreciate your time today, and we're going to go down and throw this on the 4:00 news and have some fun here, all in Arizona. But just wanted to get your sense on what it meant for him to win a championship against the team that he rooted for as a kid, and what it would mean to bring a championship for him to coach the Suns to a championship.
Well, obviously, when Mike was coaching Milwaukee and he won that championship, it was all about taking care of business where he's at. And I'm sure that the fanship of the Suns as he grew up, loving the Phoenix Suns for all that they were, loving guys like Cotton Fitzsimmons along the way, and that laundry list of great Phoenix Suns names. Al McCoy is the broadcaster. The Phoenix Suns, right? It's an institution here in Arizona. I don't know that it mattered that it was the Suns to him when he won the championship. Mike's all about taking care of business where he's at. And when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, if they end up playing Milwaukee in the finals, I'm sure it's going to be that's the other team. It's not going to matter that it's Milwaukee. We've got a job to do. We're going to get the job done. Mike's a special guy, and I think any professional coach is going to set aside all those preconceived notions about, maybe I grew up a big fan of that team or whatever. I just think it's an extraordinary opportunity for both Mike and the Suns and Arizona. And you know what? I couldn't think of a better guy. Obviously, I'm biased, but I couldn't think of a better guy to give the keys to this talented Suns team and get them over the hump. And by the way, I think that with his years of Coach Popovich, with all of the mentorship and years of training under his father, Vince Budenholzer, who's a tough tough as nails, hard-nosed basketball coach himself, who preaches defense and toughness, the two qualities I think this Suns team needs to develop the most. I just think that we got the right fit.
And finally, you are a busy man. You're doing the Indoor Football League. You're doing White Mountain Radio. You're doing football and basketball. Where can we find you? What sporting event can we find you at next? And what are you most excited to, what event are you most excited to call here in the coming days and weeks?
Wow. Let's see. Tomorrow, our production team is going to be in Tucson, and we'll be carrying a live broadcast to the Tucson Sugar Skulls, and they're going to take on the Arizona Rattlers. Our production team, the Simmons Media Group, we do the full video production for both the Rattlers and the Sugar Skulls, so both Glendale and Tucson cities covered there with what we do. I was actually scheduled to cover play-by-play that Tucson game tomorrow for our play-by-play broadcaster who has to be out of town. His son, his name is Pat Paris, and Pat is going to a Suns college graduation. So I was going to do that, but it looks like I might not be doing that. We might have somebody else check in on that for various reasons. But one way or the other, I'll be there with the production team and help them guide what we're doing tomorrow. The Arizona Rattlers are back home again next Saturday night against the defending IFL champions, the Bay Area Panthers, and I'll definitely be on that call. That'll be next Saturday evening at 6 p.m. And for the next couple of months, it's all IFL wall to wall for us here at the Sports Zone and with Simmons Media, and we'll be getting ready for a big fall. We hope to be doing actually something down in the Valley this year as well with our high school football coverage. It's been White Mountains centric all these many years, but we've heard the clarion call for us to bring what we do, and we think we do something really special for high school sports and bring that into the larger metro markets of the state. So we're always working on stuff, always growing, sometimes slower than others, but always growing what we do. And I got to tell you, I've got the greatest job in the world to be involved with sports, live sports coverage. And we've just a great team around us. My son, Derek, he's my right-hand man. But next up, it's going to be that Tucson game tomorrow night in Tucson. And then next Saturday, I'll be with the Arizona Rattlers in Glendale. We appreciate that all that you do for Arizona sports, and maybe this summer at like Charlie Clark's or the Den, or what's that, the House, and I don't know. Do you go over to Sholo, or do you just stay on your side of Pine Top Lakeside over there? Well, I live in Lakeside, but the White Mountains is it's one big, massive community is what it is. And so we're all pretty close here, Pine Top, Lakeside, Sholo. There's some good, healthy rivalries when it comes to varsity sports and maybe some other things, but in the end, it's one big, happy family. I'm everywhere. I'm all over the White Mountains. Let's go, bring it on. Come on up here and let's get on the golf course. Our weather's going to be pretty nice here for the next 3 months while you're broiling where you're at. So let's do this. Let's make it happen. Let's have a great time, and let's enjoy the weather. Awesome. Well, this has been a great time. Appreciate the time and the perspective. You bet. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you having me. Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for carving out time for us. I know I had to track you down through Dave, but this is great. We're going to go throw this on the 4 o'clock news right now. So much obliged. And we'll put it on the podcast page. Are you on social media? Well, I'm not on X. Yeah. I have an identity there, but I just never use it. I'm just not good at it. Okay. I'm on Facebook and on Instagram. What are you at? What should we tag? Just Floyd Simmons. Floyd Simmons. And then should we tag White Mountain Radio? No, tag Sports Zone Radio. Sports Zone Radio. Okay. Sports Zone Radio. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Well, appreciate your time. We're going to run down and do this. So have a great weekend. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, bye. The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.
This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.